You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
A 13-1 run wins it for the Wolves down the stretch. They take a 2-1 series lead over LeBron, Luka, and the Lakers. Welcome into the Wolves Postcast. I'm Sam Ekstrom, filling in for Luke Inman tonight, joined by Ben Beecken of Locked On Wolves and Jack Borman, as usual, from the arena. Takes three of us to fill in when Luke Inman's gone. We'll do our best tonight and talk about an enthralling, thrilling Timberwolves 116-104 victory. J-Mac goes off for a 30-piece and a clutch time monster. Luka was ill, but LeBron carried the load. An incredible back-and-forth battle. Wolves come out on top. Lots to get into on a show that is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Let's waste no time and talk turning point.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
A team that wasn't great in the clutch, Jack Borman, a team that struggled in the final 5 minutes of games. Well, at 103-103, you have a timeout after a little 4-0 spurt. Game is deadlocked. LeBron's shooting the lights out. And what do you do out of that timeout? You go Edwards 3, Rudy with a missed 3, then a shot clock violation, Reeves a missed 3, and then Nas with kind of a huge 3 on a night when he wasn't feeling it. Put the Wolves up by 6. From that point on, 103 all, stifling defense. Lakers don't have a field goal to close the game. Wolves hit a bevy of threes, win it by 12.
Yeah, that totally felt like the turning point for me. I think just seeing Anthony Edwards kind of grab hold of this game in a way that we didn't see him do a whole lot in the regular season, but certainly saw plenty of in the postseason last year was a great sight to see. I think for him on 3 straight possessions to, make a step back 3 over Luka, rifle a dart cross court through traffic to set up that Nas 3. And then for a guy, I was talking to assistant GM Dell Demps at halftime, just talking like, man, Ant's finishing, just got to get there. And then has the best and biggest finish of the game, splitting LeBron and Rui Hachimura for 2. And then right on the heels of that, did it on the other end of the floor as well, stripping Rui. And at that point, it really kind of felt like the Timberwolves were going to come out of here with a win, but it was just tremendous to see, Ant kind of not really, for the first 2 games, kind of on and off, have his moments to really come through in the biggest spot in game 3, which is, super pivotal considering that the Lakers now have, 36 hours to turn around before game 4 with Luka having a stomach bug, LeBron having to go all out in what felt like the LeBron game. But at 40 years old, turning that around is no difficult task. So the Wolves have to be feeling pretty darn good as a result of Mr. Edwards' work.
Yeah, Ben, your thoughts? I mean, at 103 all, my stomach's in knots. Wolves not great in these situations. And the way that, this is just a different Wolves team when it's on the line like this in the playoffs. The effort they were giving on the defensive end in particular down the stretch, incredible.
Yeah, and what were the 2 things that the Wolves had issues with all year? It was not playing hard against bad teams, and then it was closing games out. I mean, we all season long from the start of the year, the crunch time offense was terrible. And the funny thing is that in this game, Ant made all the right decisions, and it was like, for the most part, like when they were putting 2 on the ball, and the Lakers did that, I think more in this game, I'd be willing to bet than they did in either of the first 2 games. And they were really doubling him, and he was still making the right reads. And on the one that he kicked it out to Nas, it was I guess right out of the timeout, he hit the step back, and then the next possession, or maybe 2 possessions later, the Lakers tried to blitz him on the basically right above the break, and he just beat Luka to the corner, went baseline, and kicked it a really tough pass to Nas, just like the absolute perfect read. And the funny thing was, right before that timeout, there were a couple possessions where he dribbled himself into trouble, and he did it again a little bit later where he kind of knew the double was coming and he still dribbled into it. You take those possessions out, and to his credit, he didn't turn it over in any of those instances either. So yeah, it could be cleaned up, but he was making the right reads. Like, do I pass it here? Do I attack here? Do I shoot the step back here? And that to me is the most encouraging thing. And that the Wolves also, they gave him the space to do that. They, had shooters spaced out and they made the open threes. I mean, we'll get into this, I'm sure, but like early in the game, I thought the biggest problem was they just missed open threes. I mean, they had guys, Nas, Dante, They were just missing open shots, and Naz to hit that one in the slot is such a big play at that stage in the game, obviously.
Yeah, not a great three-point shooting night for the Wolves until the final 5 minutes, where I think they made everyone they took, and Edwards hit one with a toe on the line that should have been a three. They saved it until the very end, saved their best for last. Couple totals: Jaden McDaniels leading scorer with 30, Anthony Edwards 29, 8 and 8, Naz 11, Divincenzo 10. Jack, they just couldn't get separation until the final moments of the game. I don't know how many times they held a 7-point lead, and there would be a scrambly open three by a Lakers role player that would just squash the momentum.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the Wolves kind of, felt the brunt of gambling a lot. They gambled quite a bit in that third quarter, and it paid off in some really important ways. We had that huge Nickeil Alexander-Walker strip on Jared Vanderbilt that led to a Randle and one that kind of sustained some momentum, got it to 5 when it felt like the Lakers were going to tie or take the lead going the other way. And so I think they kind of stayed in that mode into the fourth quarter at times where, they had the Lakers held down for 18, 19 seconds of the possession. And then, they'd gamble on something in the last 5 seconds of the shot clock that would lead to a wide open Lakers three, or an offensive rebound that would lead to a wide open, Lakers three. So yeah, for the Wolves to still be able to pull away from this game, despite, the Lakers making 17 of their 43s, 42.5%. The Wolves have to feel really good, especially considering that, Finney Smith and Hachimura, were 4 of 8 from 3 between the two of them. And then, LeBron and Reeves between the two of those guys were 10 for 20. So, I mean, all of those guys combined shot 50% from 3 on a night when Luka just didn't really have it. I think, again, the Wolves just have to be feeling so good that, despite all of those things, that in so many of these games in the regular season, in the postseasons of old, it felt like the Wolves would kind of succumb to those types of things going against them. And in this one, for them to kind of rise above all that, and maybe we'll get into some of the officiating, but I don't know how easy it was to tell on TV, but in the arena, it was clear as day, super physical. The defense that the Lakers and Rui Hachimura in specifics were allowed to play on the Timberwolves, that it just didn't feel like was the same way on the other end of the floor. So for the Wolves to kind of overcome all of that was really, really important. And I think will give them a lot of confidence moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, how cool has it been to take that kind of shot from LeBron? 38 points, vintage performance, a logo 3 heat check to pull within 1 down the stretch, to withstand that in LeBron's, I don't know if it's his swan song, he's in the twilight of his career. To take that shot and live to tell the tale, it's just cool. Just cool to be in this position at this high of a level and be able to come away with a win in that game.
Yeah, I mean, when he hit that shot, I lost a little bit of faith right there. I thought that was kind of like, this isn't the night, right? Like, if LeBron's going to hit that shot, but then it was like a possession or two later. And honestly, like, if you just wanted to pick like one kind of off the wall turning point, I mean, I know you already did the turning point, but that open floor situation when Randle got held on the rebound, they didn't call it. The Lakers get like a 3-on-2 going the other way. LeBron has the ball on the right side, just fumbles the pass. Yeah. And he had just made like 3 or 4 consecutive threes, including that logo 3, and just gives it right back to, I think it was Ant. And then Nickeil, I think it was, gets an and one, or maybe Jaden on the other end. So that was like a weird kind of ping pong back and forth momentum swing. And if LeBron catches that ball clean, he's going to make that shot. And I think it was a tie game or a 2-point game at that moment. So, I mean, that was absolutely vintage LeBron, like going for putback dunks, shooting. I mean, 38 points on 21 shots is not something that LeBron is doing much of at age 40. And I mean, to withstand that, it would be genuinely surprising if he has another game like that up his sleeve in the series. But like you said, it's cool to watch it. It's cool to watch it. It's scary when you're on the other end of it. And he's the reason that team is still in the game. I mean, it was the best game Austin Reeves has played by far in the series too. But he did most of his damage from outside the arc. And it was really LeBron that kept this thing from being a double-digit Wolves lead in the second half.
Lakers bench, they had all the pluses in the plus-minus category. They brought something tonight. But no, I thought it was an incredible LeBron performance to witness. Love to take that shot. And I remember the moment you're talking about, Ben. It was 199 when LeBron dropped that pass, and then McDaniels goes the length of the floor. We'll get into McDaniels after this and talk about the J-Mac game, the latest J-Mac playoff game. This is a trend developing for J-Mac, and this is a really positive trend for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Be right back on the postcast. Brought to you tonight by Monarch Money. Do you wonder where your money's going? Well, Monarch Money can help with that. It's a complete financial command center. I live and die by it. I've connected all my accounts. I see all my transactions right on the Monarch Money app. It shows me where the money's being spent. It categorizes it for me. I connect it with my partner so we can look at it together and figure out where we can budget and how we can build wealth. It gives you great insights. It's super easy to use, and you can take advantage of this deal right now by taking control of your finances with Monarch Money and using code LOCKEDONNBA, monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Monarch Money. The numbers on J-Mac, Jack, you said it, playoff career high. That is now 5 of his last 10 playoff games. He's scored 20 or more points. This is a thing. This is real. This is a fearless third wheel that plays incredible defense and can score for you outside, inside, a do-it-all, length of the floor threat come playoff time.
Yeah, no question about it. I think the biggest thing for me with Jaden McDaniels is that, his game isn't really dependent upon whether or not he's making threes. Right. In this game, Jaden shot 1 of 5 from 3. He was 12 of 17 from 2. He was 10 of 12 at the rim. And he probably he had 2 or 3 and ones, some really tough putbacks there too. I just think that the way that he is playing off the catch and now kind of pairing that willingness to catch the ball on the move and put it on the deck with, with a much improved handle from what we saw last season, even the season before that, I think has been a huge boon for the Timberwolves offensively, especially on nights when the defense is really loading up on both Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. I think if the Timberwolves are able to effectively maintain their spacing and Jaden's able to catch the ball, lifting out of the corner or in the slot or wherever, and he's on the move, I just think he's really tough to defend because if he's not getting by you, he can just rise up over the top of you. And it doesn't matter if you're a guy that's 6'4", like if they're putting Austin Reeves on him, or if you're 6'7", 6'8", like Rui Hachimura. I think the way that Jaden was able to elevate over all those guys and finish with a super delicate touch inside was absolutely massive. And I think, it's kind of a huge step forward for the Wolves that, not only do you feel Jaden's absence when he's not out there as a defender, but I think there were moments in this game where the Timberwolves really missed his absence as a scorer. And that's a huge, kind of positive turn for the Wolves that I think is super important when you consider, just exactly how they're going to build this team around Anthony Edwards. It feels like a pretty pivotal summer. And I think Jaden McDaniels is making an awesome case for why, he needs to be completely untouchable in any scenario whatsoever.
Yeah, felt like the Wolves knew about the Luka illness and attacked Luka early and often with Jaden. So Jaden got in a rhythm. Luka stepped slow, kind of humbled Luka right out of the gate and set the tone there. But, Ben, I thought that Jaden's performance was kind of indicative of the Wolves as a whole. Game 2, passive offense, backing away, a lot of slow backdowns by Julius Randle, no flow, not a lot of downhill. I thought the Wolves were pure downhill in this game. They were getting around over-aggressive closeouts, attacking the rim, and Jaden, I trust him around the rim more than I trust Anthony Edwards, right? Like he gets to the rim with forward momentum, lays it in softly like Jack mentioned. He's just a trustworthy finisher. He's got a nice little mid-range game too, kind of a push shot, hook shot thing. His bag has increased this year considerably.
Yeah, last year he was, and even go back a couple years, he was pretty much just a catch and shoot 3-point shooter. And I know a couple years ago he was around 40%, but last year that dropped below 34%. But it was still the only thing he really did. Like he started to kind of develop that little like lean shot that he does. But it was still kind of inconsistent. And every time he did it, I think at least I was like, it's not a great shot, to just kind of lean from 12 feet when you're Jaden McDaniels. But now he's really good at it. And that's a legit thing he can go to. But to Jack's point, when he gets to the rim, he's what you guys both said it. Jack said he was 10 for 12 at the rim in this game. Like, he's athletic enough, he's long enough, and people don't assume he can finish through contact, but he does. And for him to finish like that, and one he had in transition in this game when he got hit pretty hard, that was a really impressive finish in the open floor. That wasn't just like, on a drive. That was in transition.
Yeah.
And he finished through that contact. So I think adding that to his game, and now knowing like he shot, like his 3-point rate went down pretty drastically this year. The number of shots he took at the rim over the course of the regular season went up. A lot of people don't realize that that's what Jaden McDaniels does now, is he's kind of that second side pump, fake, and attack, and teams will give him some space. But he also is, at least, even though the 3-point percentage on the season isn't great, and again, he was 1 for 5 in this game, he's confident enough to take it. The teams at least have to respect him and close out, to an extent against him. And then as a whole, like Jaden's night fed into this, but the Timberwolves won the points in the paint battle 56-26 in this game. I mean, it's pretty hard to be a plus 30 points in the paint. And the Wolves only had 9 offensive rebounds too. So it's not like they were doing it all on, Rudy Gobert playing Kevin Love on the boards, right? This was the Timberwolves just driving into the paint, being aggressive, getting downhill, to your point, Sam, and scoring in the paint to the tune of 56 points in the paint in this game, which was just phenomenal. And Jaden was a huge part of that.
Mm-hmm. Want to talk Julius Randle as well. I think he's probably the third Timberwolf you think of tonight after J-Mac and Ant. 22, 5, and 4. Kind of an emotional spark as well at times. It's got to feel so good for Julius, who last year missed some pretty intense playoffs with the Knicks, was injured, comes to Minnesota. There's question whether or not he's even embraced here. People are obviously disgruntled about the Cat trade, gets off to a rocky start. And then to see him, I think he picked up, that open floor hustle rebound and got fouled maybe and kind of fired up the crowd. Cool moment for Julius to feel this energy, be part of a winning playoff team. And he was, again, Jack, just super steady tonight, 22 points, had some uplifting moments for the offense.
Yeah, no question about it. I think, again, I was in Los Angeles for games 1 and 2, and you could really see the body language of the Timberwolves really at the end of that first quarter. And what happened at the start of the second quarter was the Timberwolves needed somebody to step up when things looked kind of bleak and kind of take control of the horns, grab the wheel, steady things, and kind of inject some life and some confidence back into the rest of the group. And Julius Randle did that in the second quarter of game 2. And the exact same thing happened tonight, where it kind of felt like the Timberwolves should have been up 10, 12, 15 after the first quarter. And that just wasn't the case tonight. And so Randle, I thought, when things were looking not super great there at the start of the second quarter, and kind of a weird lineup the early part of the second quarter, after the Wolves kind of lost some rhythm and lost the non-Luka minutes 9-5 in the first 4 minutes. Randle kind of comes in and just gets super physical. I thought he scored 5 straight points in a really important moment of the game where he had a score, then comes back down and gets an and one, and then is fighting on the offensive glass. And I just think the way that he plays is just so draining for a defense to have to try and defend him. And the way that he's just unabashedly attacking the paint against a team with 0 interior rim protection, I just think is super important. Shot 5 of 9 in the paint again tonight. And then for Randle, shot 10 of the Wolves' 21 free throws, and he made 9 of those 10. And I think, again, I talked about it with Ben before the series that, I think the formula for Julius Randle wasn't necessarily having 26, 27 points. It was more having somewhere in that 18 to 22 point range, maybe 7 or 8 rebounds and 5 or 6 assists. And again, 22 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, was plus 11 in 41 minutes, and really got after it on the defensive end of the floor as well. I just think he's kind of been that calm and steadying guy for a team that can be a little emotionally, on a roller coaster a little bit. And the way that he's just kind of always even keeled, I think, has been really, really important for this Timberwolves teams at moments when they do kind of start to flame out at the officiating or missing shots or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, Randle wasn't super efficient in game 1, and then he put up numbers in game 2, but not always really in a flow of the offense. Tonight, he was just a perfect fit into what they were trying to do.
Yeah, it didn't feel forced. I mean, like, and there were a couple of possessions where he did Julius Randle bully ball because the Wolves kind of needed him to. And when Ant's off the floor and when Randle's on the floor, that's generally okay, unless LeBron's guarding him. And then it's, please don't just move the ball. But like if he's got Rui Hachimura or, any sort of a mismatch, then yeah, that's fine. That's Julius Randle's offense. But the majority of his possessions in this game, to your point, were within the flow of the offense. And for him to have 22 points on 13 shots, he got 10 free throw attempts in this game. And, he had a bunch of turnovers in game one, but besides that, like the assists to Jack's point have been there. The rebounding's been consistent enough. It's completely flipped the narrative on its head that Julius Randle doesn't show up in the playoffs. And of course, it's a pretty small sample for Randle, at least a healthy Julius Randle on some pretty suspect teams he played in the playoffs with. So I don't know that he's really gotten a fair shake in terms of his playoff performance. And this is exactly what they need him to do, is be that secondary option, be a secondary playmaker, be able to fill in the gaps when they need somebody to do that. And he's played within himself. He's been an energy guy. And this is a super physical series. I mean, to the point that Chris Finch was saying after game two, that he thought it was too physical at times, that the officials were letting too much go. And Julius Randle, like Jack alluded to this earlier, there were a couple of possessions where like Rui Hachimura was just giving him a shoulder 30 feet from the basket, and Randle was absorbing the contact and just kind of playing through it and kind of looking around like, why isn't this a foul? Like, if anybody did this to anyone else on the floor, it would be a foul. So his ability to kind of keep his head and play through it and really kind of relish that contact is very important. It's an element this team didn't have. And I don't want to turn this into a comparison with Karl-Anthony Towns, but that's one of the things that Randle brings that Cat didn't, is, that wouldn't sit at the same way with Karl-Anthony Towns. He would react very differently to the physicality and the lack of foul calls than Julius Randle. The way that Randle has been able to mostly keep his composure so far this series has been really, really important.
Big picture, Wolves scored 116 tonight, 31 points better than game two. Did you observe a noticeable offensive adjustment? Because like we said, 3-point shooting was not dramatically better tonight. They did hit 13 threes. That's a good number, but out of 36. Jack, did you see anything that led to the offense opening up a little more tonight?
Yeah, for sure. I thought they moved without the basketball a lot more. Chris Finch said pregame that the Timberwolves kind of needed to stop overanalyzing things in the early part of the game and just kind of play with more pace, move for the sake of movement. And I thought that was certainly the case. I think when you have a defense that's trying to load up on not only Anthony Edwards, but also Julius Randle, I think the more that the guys that aren't involved in that, whether it's Rudy, Mike, Jaden, all three of those guys moved really well without the basketball in the early part of the game. You saw Gobert draw 3 fouls in the first quarter, which was important. Jaden had some nice cuts to the middle of the floor for baskets early on. And I just think that when you have guys kind of flying around, the other 3 guys that you're not really focused on as a defense are flying around, and it forces guys to think twice about where they are, where they're looking. I think that can create those split-second opportunities for Ant or Randle to get downhill into the paint, where the Wolves were plus 30 in the paint tonight, as Ben mentioned. I would be shocked if that's not the worst effort of the season for the Lakers, especially considering that they had Anthony Davis for half the season as well. So I think that was really important, and that allowed the Wolves to get into the paint a lot more. And again, just super important that in the half court, the Wolves paint scoring was night and day. The Wolves in game 3, scored 36 points in the paint in the half court, which is a great number. And in game 2, they scored 32, but the difference was the efficiency. Tonight in the half court in the paint, they shot 54%. In game 2, they only shot 43%. And again, I think Jaden McDaniels being able to shoot 10 and 12 in the restricted area has a lot to do with that. And so the way that he was cutting and the way they got Dante more involved, I think were really important and moved the defense around and created some passing lanes for kick out threes.
Final pause, and then we talk about the latest Ant poster. That's next. All right, rolling on. Wolves Postcast. Make sure to check out Ben Beecken on Locked On Wolves for great daily Wolves content. He'll have his own reaction to this game. Jack Borman holding down the fort in the Postcast all year long, and Luke Inman will be back soon. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Let's get into what we'll be talking about.
This is what you'll be talking about.
This is what you'll be talking about tomorrow. Anthony Edwards posterized Luka Doncic, and it was awesome. Jack, better dunk, game 2 Ant slam or this one over Luka?
Yeah, I think it had to be this one just because it was at home at Target Center. And, some of the media members, we were all just kind of, grabbing each other's legs and arms on that, trying to stay calm. I think obviously the reaction of the crowd was great too. And I think it came at a really important moment when the Wolves are trying to get a little bit of momentum. And so while it is cool that Ant was able to kind of climb the ladder over Jackson Hayes and the home crowd kind of was, feeling it there, I think that this one, and objectively, the one in LA was probably a better dunk, if you're getting an objective dunk score there. But I just think when you factor in the home crowd, that it was over Luka, sparked a run, all that stuff was super important.
Ben?
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say. I think objectively the dunk in LA was better, and I would also add in the fact that he stole a possession on this one too, right? Like he came out of nowhere, stole the ball from Luka. But pickpocketed him, pulled it back out and then said, nope, I'm going back in, and kind of double clutch two-handed slam over him. I think over Luka at home, off the steal, sparking a run, all that. The dunk in LA was crazy, just from from a style points perspective, it was insane. But this was a really good one.
Other crazy moments from the game that stood out to you, I thought there were some notable ones. I thought the Rudy strip of Luka on the perimeter that led to the Jaden and one that Ben talked about, finishing through contact. That was probably an awesome in-arena moment. I mean, Jack can speak to that, like which moments really popped the most.
And that was, and really quick, Sam, that was in the exact same spot on the floor, on the exact end of the floor that Luka Doncic hit that dagger in game 2 to kind of tell everyone this is over. So that I think that was an important kind of symbolization there too.
Yeah, that was super cool. I thought the Mike Conley bank 3 was pretty awesome too. That was a big shot in the game too. You're up by 3. You need every point at that juncture. Just other singular moments, Ben, that stood out from this one.
Yeah. There were a couple of those transition moments, and I can't think of like a specific one, but I think as a whole, the fact, being at home helps from a momentum standpoint. Both, it makes those transition moments stand out more because of the crowd, but also I think it can snowball a little bit more than it can on the road. And obviously this team does relish silencing opponent arenas for sure. But I think that getting out in transition in general in this game was huge. Minnesota had 21 fast break points. They scored 28 points off of 19 Laker turnovers. They had 10 steals. And this is like, that's one of the keys to this series against the Lakers, is taking advantage of when the Lakers are sloppy with the ball. The Wolves clearly have a more athletic team and can take advantage of that home crowd. Now that should be a big advantage at Target Center. So there were a couple of those. There was a big, there was a Jaden dunk where the Lakers just didn't guard him in transition, and he went down and got a big dunk. That was nice. A few of those different moments, and Gobert had a couple of blocks too. I know he only has one in the box score, but there were consecutive possessions. I felt like it was maybe one he didn't get credit for, but
he had one. He had the snatch right below the rim.
Yeah.
That led to the Ant.
That was probably a steal
in transition. Yeah, that was in the Lakers. There were a couple moments too in the game. That was one of them. The Lakers were upset about a call and stopped playing. Like they thought there was a kicked ball one time.
They thought there was a whistle that was blown in the arena. And, I will say, JJ, that was what JJ, I don't know if they talked about on the broadcast, but JJ walked on the floor and was going absolutely ballistic. And they made an announcement in the arena that anyone, that was blowing a whistle would get kicked out. And then JJ was like, I do it again, because they were playing something on the loudspeaker. And there were several times where I looked and thought, I thought I heard a whistle, and guys stopped playing. So, that was definitely something too.
Did you hear it, Jack?
I thought I heard a whistle.
Okay.
There were
funny because
times that I thought I heard a whistle.
One of them was that Luka, it was a fast break where he just stopped playing and the Wolves scored on it. And they went back to that one on the broadcast and they showed it. And they're like, see, but that was the only example they showed of and they made it like Mike Breen said something to the effect of, there were multiple occasions where the Lakers stopped playing. And I was like, there's one clearly, but I didn't see any others. And it was, I don't know. It was funny that got brought up, and then obviously they stopped. So,
let's quick get your read on the officiating, because I watched mostly Breen and Jefferson and Doris. And I didn't get the sense from that broadcast that there was any discussion or consternation with the officiating. Then I switched for the home stretch to Grady and Jim Pete. And I was instantly met with, the officials have had a tough night tonight, Jim. So Ben, did you feel that watching it on ESPN, that the officiating was a little uneven or letting them be too physical?
I see. I wouldn't say uneven, but I would say it's the classic. It's a little bit of, we saw this a little bit last year. Actually, I thought it was kind of the Wolves' strategy against the Suns last year in the playoffs is they can't call everything, right? So be as physical as you want, and they'll call some fouls, and we'll live with it. And ultimately, and I know this is what Lakers fans will say, the Lakers got called for more fouls. The Wolves shot one more free throw than the Lakers, but the Lakers were being far more physical on the perimeter. And I think there's also the fact that Finch had to use a challenge in the first 3 minutes of the game. He's 4 for 4 in his challenges in the last 2 games. And I don't remember game 1, but like just absurd calls that you shouldn't have to use a challenge on. And that's what gets them so worked up, because it's like, yeah, I get it. I have my challenge, but I don't want to have to use it right now. But a possession's a possession and it's our ball. So I want to use it. I think it's more that, and I think it's the level of physicality, and I think there's this feeling, the Wolves have this feeling that if we do the same thing the Lakers are, it's not going to be received the same way by the officials. I thought overall, like, it was okay, but it just felt like it was more the way that it was being applied and the physicality on guys like Randle that I thought was a bit tough. There's certainly been worse officiated games, but yeah, it wasn't one of the better ones either.
Jack, I want to know what made you tweet at 10:50 p.m. Get that guy a map.
That was when Dante Divincenzo I couldn't remember if it was Rui Hachimura or Dorian Finney-Smith. I think it was Dorian Finney-Smith. We just sat him down and then made a step back 3 at a point where, Dante had really struggled coming into this game. No question about it. I think, for Dante, 13 points, 1 of 7 from 3. And that was all of his production in the first 2 games. And for him to give them 10 points and still really struggled shooting, 4 of 13, 2 of 8 from 3. But I think to have a moment like that where he really got the crowd into it, and it was at a pivotal juncture, I think was super important, and hopefully can kind of help him get some of that swagger back. And I think, again, for the Wolves to be up 2-1 right now, LeBron had 38 tonight. Dante DiVincenzo has struggled. Naz Reid has struggled. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has struggled. Rudy Gobert has struggled. And the Wolves are still up 2-1, I think is pretty important.
Yeah, let's end with Gobert, because, again, 1 point tonight. People are going to probably underplay how good he was at times in isolation, some of the defensive impact. Offensively, I feel like there have been offensive rebounds to clean up, and if he had better hands, he would probably put them back. That's just not Rudy's game. They're not allowing a lot of room for him on the offensive end. Ben, do you think that is this something the Lakers are doing with the way that they're packing it in and just clogging the lane a little bit? I mean, what do you think the Wolves could do to get Rudy a little more involved offensively? Not that they necessarily need it either. I mean, like his points kind of come incidentally sometimes, but what's your take on Gobert?
Yeah, I mean, coming into the series, I was expecting him to have much more of he's had far less of an impact offensively than he did all regular season. I was expecting him to actually have more of an impact because of the lack of true bigs on the Lakers roster. I thought that, like last year against the Mavs, the lob wasn't there for the Wolves because the Mavs had so many long athletic bigs, and that's not the case for the Lakers. So I thought there'd be some opportunity, but you mentioned it, Sam, like they are packing the paint. That's been their goal, and so there just isn't a whole lot of space, and so to try and cram in a lob to Rudy isn't a super efficient offensive play, and obviously they've never run plays to get Rudy the ball, so like that's just kind of it's more that than anything else, that they're far better off trying to get an open 3 or have somebody like Ant or a second side attack from somebody like Jaden or Julius Randle against a mismatch or a closeout. To the offensive glass though, like Rudy should be a little more active, but again, I do think it's related to the Lakers packing the paint. The Lakers have 3 or 4 guys down there, and Rudy's the only guy that's usually down there to try and offensively rebound the ball. It's just odd because he had been so dominant on the glass basically from mid-March on, and the Wolves as a team have been so dominant on the offensive glass really since January 1st. So It's been a little bit surprising. I do think that, like, if the Wolves were to advance, that's something that against whoever they'd play in the second round, Houston or Golden State, I think he'd have more success on the offensive glass. But it would certainly be a nice shot in the arm if he was able to be a little more active here for the balance of this series.
Quick thoughts on Rudy, Jack?
Yeah, I think, look, Rudy Gobert, for the lack of offensive production that he's had, the Timberwolves have been excellent defensively with him on the floor. But this was the first game of the year, or first game of this series, where the Wolves were better defensively with Rudy off the court than with him on the court. With him on the court, they were still a +8 net rating. They won those 25 minutes, 62-59. They had a 111 net rating, or defensive rating, which is awesome. But they had a 107 defensive rating without him out there in 22 and a half minutes, and they won those minutes by 9. So again, I think it is definitely a bummer that a guy that you're paying the amount of money that you're paying is almost like a luxury at this point in this series. But I do think that too, like on the flip side of it, I do think that you have to commend Naz Reid and Julius Randle for the way that they've been able to play defensively, and Jaden McDaniels is a big part of that without Rudy on the floor. And I think it just speaks to the balance of this group, that they have a lot of different lineups they can put out there that can do a lot of different things really well. And that's super important. But I think for the Wolves, the more that they've got to be able to find him over the middle of the floor when he seals or has a small on him, I think they did a good job of that in the first quarter. But again, the more that you'll be able to get guys from the slots that get into the paint, the more you'll open up some of that vertical spacing and lob threats that I think will be important as well. So I think, again, and that's a beautiful thing about someone like Jaden McDaniels, is he's been finding Rudy on some of these lobs. So I think if Jaden can continue to be active from the slots in the corner on the drive, Rudy hanging around in the dunker spot, I think you'll be able to find some of those. But certainly I think for Rudy, that the fact that he hasn't had very many offensive rebound putback dunks or just putback scores, I think is a little bit concerning, and something that you'd certainly like to see more of moving forward.
Game 4, Sunday afternoon, 2:30 tip Central Time. Postcast right afterward. Jack Borman will be there. Luke Inman should be back, and the usual duo will return. But Ben and I filling in tonight. Fun time, guys. Fun game, fun atmosphere. Playoff basketball is the best. T-Wolves up 2-1 in the series, 116-104. They win. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Hey, hand us a subscription, too, if you would, at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Get us to 10K by the time the Wolves playoff run is done. Check out Locked On Wolves with Ben Beecken. Thank you, Jack Borman. Find him on Twitter at JRBorman13. And I'm Sam Ekstrom saying good night. Wolves win. Talk to you next time.